Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. In the town of Brookline, Massachusetts, stands a house with a mysterious history. Built in the late 19th century, the imposing structure became the epicentre of unexplained phenomena during 2016, when it was occupied by a young couple whose relationship would be tested by the otherworldly forces that seemed to permeate its walls. Jessica Morris, a 23-year-old nursing student working part-time, found herself entangled in a tumultuous relationship with Gavin Hill, who had recently inherited the house. The property, boasting 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, had undergone extensive renovations just before Gavin moved in, a fact that would later be scrutinised as a possible trigger for the strange occurrences that followed. From the first moment Jessica stepped into that house on that crisp autumn evening in October 2016, she sensed that something was not quite right. Despite its undeniable beauty and newly refurbished interiors, the house exuded an aura of loneliness and emptiness that seemed to be amplified by its grand layout. Jessica initially chalked this up to a lack of a personal touch, but as time went on, she realised the house's issues ran far deeper than mere decor. The feeling of being watched was constant, especially at night when they would watch TV with most of the lights off. A long hallway branched off from the living room, and Jessica often felt like someone was glaring at them from the dark corridor. While these sensations were unsettling, Jessica tried her best to shake them off as mere paranoia. One of the first incidents that truly alarmed Jessica occurred on a November evening. After finishing a late shift, she headed to the house to relax in the jacuzzi tub downstairs. Gavin had texted saying he'd be working late, so Jessica had the place to herself. As she soaked in the steaming water, eyes closed in relaxation, her peace was suddenly shattered by the sound of the front door slamming shut. Heavy boots stomped down the hallway towards the bathroom, stopping abruptly outside the door. Jessica, assuming it was Gavin returning home in a foul mood, called out to him, but her words were met with eerie silence. Remembering previous conversations about the strange atmosphere in the house, Jessica thought Gavin might be trying to scare her. She called out again, this time annoyed, telling him to quit any pranks. When silence persisted, Jessica's unease turned to fear. Shaking, she stepped out of the tub and opened the bathroom door, only to find an empty hallway. As she retreated to grab her phone, Jessica heard the front door open again and could hear Gavin setting things down. She came down the hall and he greeted her, seeming to be in a good mood. He even joked about knowing she'd be in the bath when he noticed her robe. Jessica, practically speechless, explained what had happened. Gavin waved it off, saying he heard that stuff all the time, simply stating you get used to it. True to Gavin's words, Jessica began to hear phantom footsteps frequently, both when she was alone in the house and when they were together. The incidents became a disturbing norm in their daily lives. Another chilling event occurred on a bright sunny day. Jessica and Gavin were sitting on the couch discussing plans to go hiking when suddenly the front door burst open with such force that it slammed against the wall behind it and bounced back. Stunned, they sat in silence for several moments before Jessica suggested that the wind must be strong outside. Gavin, however, pointed out that there was literally no wind. When they walked out onto the porch, they found a perfectly still, pleasant day. As winter settled in, the paranormal activity intensified. One evening, as darkness fell, Jessica was watching TV alone while Gavin worked in another room. She had never taken seriously the concept of orbs until that night. As she watched TV, she saw what looked like a small circular ball of light descending the staircase from the corner of her eye. Turning to look directly at it, Jessica watched in astonishment as the orb floated beneath the TV and up the massive shelf to its right. She observed its steady climb, shelf by shelf, until it reached the ceiling and vanished. Covered in goosebumps and terrified, Jessica knew there was no rational explanation for what she had just witnessed. All the windows were sealed off with blinds closed and heavy drapes drawn. She hadn't heard a single vehicle pass by, and the TV volume was on low. Jessica called for Gavin to come to the living room. When she explained what she had seen, even he seemed genuinely freaked out, though he admitted it didn't surprise him. "Whatever it is," he remarked, "it likes being noticed." But the most disturbing incident occurred one winter night, an experience that still unsettles Jessica to this day. She and Gavin had fallen asleep while watching TV. The house was particularly cold, as keeping such a large space heated in low temperatures was both difficult and expensive. Jessica woke up suddenly, feeling disoriented. Reaching for her phone, she panicked when she saw it was nearly 5 a.m. She had to be at work in less than 2 hours and hadn't brought a change of clothes. As Jessica hurriedly prepared to leave, she noticed Gavin wide awake on the other end of the couch, staring at her with a strange expression. When she asked why he hadn't woken her earlier, knowing her work situation, he just shook his head and slowly looked away. Pressed for time, Jessica didn't pursue the matter. However, as she got her shoes on, Gavin asked her not to leave until he was ready. Confused, Jessica watched as Gavin disappeared down the hall, returning moments later, fully dressed and putting on his coat. When she asked where he was going, Gavin said he was heading to his mother's house, just a few doors down. Jessica thought he was crazy. It was 5 a.m. after all. Gavin insisted it didn't matter. He had a key and would rest on his mother's couch until she woke up. Bewildered but running late, Jessica made a mental note to ask about it later. They walked outside, said their goodbyes, and Gavin headed straight to his mother's house. Later that day, after work, Jessica returned to Gavin's house, determined to understand his strange behaviour. Gavin seemed reluctant to discuss it, but eventually shared a chilling account of what had transpired. He explained that he had awakened shortly before Jessica, roused by what felt like something hitting the back of the couch. As he became more alert, he suddenly found himself unable to look away from Jessica's sleeping form. Without warning or control, Gavin felt a primal growl building in his throat. His jaw clenched painfully tight as the growls deepened and intensified, becoming so loud that his ears rang with the sound. Gavin described the growls as so animalistic that he couldn't even imitate them. Throughout this terrifying experience, he remained fixated on Jessica, who never stirred. While part of him felt an overwhelming surge of anger, another part wondered in astonishment how Jessica could sleep through such a cacophony. The episode lasted only 15 to 20 seconds, though to Gavin it felt like an eternity. When it finally ended, he was left shaken and confused, unable to comprehend what had just happened. He sat there for several minutes, debating whether to wake Jessica before deciding against it. It was this frighteningly bizarre experience that had driven him to seek refuge at his mother's house, too afraid to remain alone in the house once Jessica left for work. As Jessica listened to Gavin's account, A chill ran down her spine. Was some malevolent force in the house attempting to harm her through Gavin? Or was it merely trying to frighten them both? These questions would remain unanswered, but they cast a dark shadow over the couple's already strained relationship. In the months that followed, Jessica and Gavin's relationship deteriorated, hastened by the stress and fear induced by their experiences in the house. By the summer of 2017, they had parted ways, and Jessica felt profound relief knowing she would never have to set foot in that house again. Gavin eventually sold the property, unable to shake the memories of the nightmarish encounters he had experienced there. As for the new inhabitants, Jessica can only wonder about the experiences that await them within the walls of the beautiful yet troubled home.